Good morning, Baltimore. Good morning, good afternoon, those who are on YouTube, everywhere in the world. Good morning. This is Chief O. Let's talk. Let's talk about it. The reason why we called it podcast Let's Talk About It is simply because there are issues, there are things that are going on in this world that people just don't want to talk about it. They just want to talk it in. While we are on this show, please share, like, and share and comment. Say something, talk to us about it, whatever your concern is. And when you can, and if you want to, call us at 677-298-3433, and I will bring you in and hear your questions to either Dr. Butler or to Dr. Humphrey. Good morning, the world. Good morning, hello, good afternoon in some places. Good evening. A sharp, very sharp, careful what you say, because she will catch you and nip you to the bud. Dr. Gwendolyn Butler, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Chief O.
Okay, and I have a wonderful looking man, Dr. Butler. Lift the phone so I can see the rest of you. Just see your head. That'll be helpful. Oh, come. There you go. Thank you so much. We have who you're looking at right now on YouTube is Dr. His name is Dr. Andre H. Humphrey. I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. Dr. Humphrey. Dr. Humphrey is an associate director. His occupation is really building and real estate, but he's dedicated his career to others, for others, goes well beyond that. He's a reverend as well. Dr. Humphrey, after the tragic death of his son, Andre Jr., a United States Marine, whom being an Army man, I salute. May he rest in peace. That is so sad. His bio is so extensive that it's really better for us to just move into the subject. But everybody who is watching, his name is Dr. Andre H. PhD. Dr. Humphrey, thank you so much for coming and being part of this program.
Thank you for having me, Chief O.
One of the first things, and we like to talk about things that are happening every time that a politician opens their mouth, trauma hits us like a brick. Trauma is defined as a deeply distressing and disturbing experience. A personal trauma, like the death of a child, or even it's an emotional response to a terrorist event. Trauma. There are many types of trauma. And the reason why Dr. Humphrey is here is to give us a good analysis. Now, I want to make sure that everybody who's listening to understand that what I say in this show is mine. I focus on Black people and African Americans. We need people to explain to them some of the things that are happening to us in our community and that we do not understand, nor do we know how to handle it. We're hoping that Dr. Humphrey can be able to shine a little, highlight some of what we can do under so many of the conditions, things that are to us. The relentless violence in Baltimore. 190 homicides so far this year. 380 non-fatal shootings. Danger. 2018, 10 years, 10 people have been killed under that age, this year alone, trauma, political messengers, trauma, COVID, trauma. Trauma seems to be everywhere in our daily lives. Dr. Butler, I'd like to come to you first. Although you are my co host today, and a very pretty one too at that. Say you. And again, if anybody has any questions, call us at 677-298-3433. Like, share, and subscribe to us so that we can reach the 100,000 people that we're trying to get to. Good morning, Gwen.
Good morning. I want to thank you, Chief O, for having us here this morning. And I am just really honored to be here with you and Reverend Dr. Humphrey because I am here this morning just as a citizen. I have been away from Baltimore for about 25 years living in Atlanta. Even though I frequently visited Baltimore, coming back home is the state I'm in now. And but the state of my people and my city brings great concern to my heart. I have seen the changes and the transition in the city to grow the city, but I've seen the people and the quality of life deteriorating in Baltimore. I had the wonderful experience of being on a panel with Dr. Humphrey, and he and I had some conversations about what trauma really is and the fact that we need trauma centers in every corner of this city, just like we have churches, just like we have bars and clubs. We really need trauma centers because our people are going through a series of traumas with no recovery. And I know I wanted to be with Dr. Humphrey this morning because his topic and his experience is well needed here today.
Thank you so much, Gwen, Dr. Butler. I call her Gwen because I know her. She's such a wonderful person. So I get a little Gwen. So don't get annoyed and don't call me because I called Dr. Butler Gwen. She's a friend.
You can call me Gwen. You can call me Gwen anytime.
That's just I want the audience to understand that she's a friend. That's why I can call her Gwen. And if you don't like it, that's too bad. Trauma.
They'll get used to it, Chief.
Dr. Humphrey, your your CV is so long, and your experience in this business of trauma is so extensive, and the awards I've received, you know, the scientists in many ways that you can speak to this subject, and the people in our community need to hear you. Good morning, and welcome to Let's Talk About It.
Good morning, Chief O, and to a great sister I met, Dr. Gwen Butler. And good morning to the world. Um, the trauma experience. First of all, I'm the chief of the Baltimore Trauma Response Team, and I've been doing this work over 30 years. Uh, First-hand experience. I experienced trauma when it hit a 23-year-old son who had stationed the White House commission under George Herbert Bush. Came home from leave to visit his mom and got into altercation with his stepdad. Stepdad was a former state trooper and a former Howard County police officer. And after the altercation, um, he was leaving the home and his stepfather shot him and killed him. So I was devastated, and I wore this. I carried it in my heart for over 24 years. So I know what trauma can do to a person firsthand. But if any African American live in the urban city or just being black, you have what you call a generational trauma and historical trauma. So trauma is not a new word, but it's a word that a lot of people do not understand and the devastating things it can do to a human being, affecting your judgment and how you see the world, especially a child. A child processes trauma different because he doesn't know how to. They don't know how to figure things out as an adult tries to figure things out in maturity. And then we have what you call the urban trauma syndrome. If any African American live in the inner city, the things that people experience, mainly our children, the violence around us, poverty, uh, economics, no jobs, lack of resources. There's so many things that can contribute to trauma, but the effects that it has. We are in a pandemic, but there's also a trauma pandemic because people have lost hope. People trying to eat, trying to survive, and being pinned in the house doesn't help because where mama would go to work and send the children to school, where some of the children just go to school to depend on just getting a meal, and a single parent of a household, especially a female, trying to struggle and trying to explain to her children why they can't eat. And knowing what this is firsthand, I lived it, but didn't really define it till I hello, hello.
Yeah, I couldn't where the static is coming from. What uh, ear earbud? I hope our producer can hear. Okay, good. He's reduced the static. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, growing up in the projects and living amongst so many people, we were forced to get along and to survive. Um, Everybody in the family did things together collectively. We went to school together, we prayed together, we went to church together. But the disconnect comes in because people don't know how they're going to survive, and this put pressure on the individual. So we're trying to survive. Then COVID hit, but trauma has been going on with African Americans since the day of slavery, when we were forced to uh, come to America on a ship as slaves, chained together,
Mm-hmm.
had to eat and defecate in the same area, and having mental illness. Mental illness race is something that our ancestors told us that what happens in the house stays in the house. It wasn't a topic that people really discussed, and people were ashamed of it. So when you have issues and you don't discuss it, especially mental health issues, what happens? We carry that frustration, and
Mm-hmm.
mentally, there's two parts of the brain, the cortex and the frontal lobe, and on the left side and on the right side, each one does different things as far as the taste, smell, and things like that, where we have our functioning that cause us to react in a different way, and it's a thing called fight, flight, or freeze. So when you're in a position where you are pressured and you feel threatened, there's a chemistry in the brain that's released that causes the fear factor to come. So when a person is trying to fight and survive for their life, and then when they feel defeated, if they're able to take flight and leave, they'll do that. But if not, they're defeated. Something happened in their life. When we speak about trauma, Chief O and Dr. Butler, people often think about a tragic accident, but there are vicarious types of trauma where we have to see this in other people. And we have trainings that we offer where people, it's called first aid mental health training, where you will be trained to recognize the prognosis in those that have mental health issues. And that way, when you see people dealing with post traumatic syndrome, those military men are coming home from the military, things like that. Um, People are traumatized, and some of them don't even really know it. It's just like a form of depression. People can be depressed and don't really recognize, excuse me, that they're depressed. So, in African Americans, by us being ashamed to talk about mental health, it goes untreated. And when
Mm.
things goes untreated, there's nothing wrong talking to anyone in the mental health field um, to be treated for their ailments and get help. So
Eh,
that topic is so broad that we could be on this phone all day and all night. By the world uh, being in the condition that it's in, we have to all come together and work together in order to deal with the problem. In order to give the problem a solution, we have to get to the root of this. So
Doc,
if there's any particular questions that you want me to expound on, I can do that for you.
okay, Humphrey, the trauma that we know exists, there is an acute trauma, chronic trauma, there's complex trauma. It's just, and as you just introduced, the urban trauma syndrome. That's, I don't know that many those people in the field have seen that urban trauma syndrome. That's interesting to me because it occurs in the 41 urban cities in the United States.
Hmm.
These type of traumas, if a family is going through a traumatic event, a traumatized event, what would you advise them? How would you advise them to handle this? And if anybody wants to call in, please call in 677-298-3433. Like, comments, you can send a comment in if you like. But Dr. Humphrey, there's so many black people that are having that experience of traumatic events. What would you advise them on? How do you initially, first of all, recognize it, and then how do you handle it?
Okay, great question, Chico. First of all, we take uh, a child that's going to school every day with a schoolmate and discover that their friend just been killed because the children in the urban communities see so much of this. It became the norm. I mean, it became a set where it became numb to them because they see it, they live it, and when they are in the families, instead of sitting around the table discussing positive things, the kids have taken all this in their mind mentally, and you can imagine us as adults how our minds can only stand uh, but so much. So a kid's mind don't really develop until they get in the early teens and grow into their 20s. So what I would recommend that, and not to bring different religions into this, but we have to. If you don't have a spiritual, strong foundation, that family circle has been broken because what happens is that if the mother is working and there's not a father in the home, especially African American young men, they're left to defend themselves. I just was blessed and fortunate to have 9 uncles. And talking from the male perspective, in order to be a man, you have to meet a man. Someone have to teach you uh, morals, characters, and principles. Principles, morals are what we've been taught. Principles are what we live by. So when this hits in the family, we have to have a strong person in that family, whether it's a great grandmother or a great uncle or whoever, who can sit down, figure this out. When I say figure it out, there's so many deterrents that breaks family up. We're talking about alcohol, drugs, addiction, treatment is needed in wraparound services because if the children are out of control, they don't have a mother to go to or a father that may be strung out on drugs. Maybe they may have an uncle that they can talk to, but in some cases, instead of the uncles teaching these young children, males or females, instilling them the right thing to do, they influence them. And this is not to put a stigma on all African American people because we all are not selling drugs and killing people and doing negative things. But we must, to answer your question, Chico, we have to have a strong spiritual foundation. And if we
Mm-hmm.
don't have that spiritual foundation, then the devil, John 10:10 says, Satan comes to kill, steal, and divide. That's his job. So when that
Mm-hmm.
family circle is broken, um, you have capable people in our families that have wisdom that God has given us from birth. And wisdom doesn't come from a Harvard or a Yale, but it's God's ability, the gift that He gave us for us to use what we have. You take, for instance, in slavery, our ancestors couldn't afford to go to the doctor. The slave master wouldn't allow them to take off work to go to the doctor. So the
Mm-hmm.
wisdom and the knowledge that were taught and instilled in us, we have to pass it on. And we failed, some of us failed to do that as African Americans. Having background and working with juveniles over 20 years, I worked in the Department of Juvenile Services and I wrote a book called Black Youth in the Juvenile Justice System. I
So
was able to write,
when
sir.
a child is in need of comfort because of a traumatic event in that child's life, normally you can go to mom if mom is there, or
Mm,
grandma if she's
mm,
there, and lean on her and rest in her, and she can come. And that comfort could elevate or even take away some of the traumatic feelings. So what you're saying to us, lean, we need to find a way to get to the church and lean on God to help us out when a trauma
absolutely.
occurs.
Yeah.
Dr. Butler, think.
Well, it's interesting listening to Dr. Humphrey this morning because even when he was talking about how things are passed down from generation to generation, I actually know that in my family, we've been very strong. My grandmother passed away 2 years ago, and we were actually 6 generations alive in my family. But I
Mm,
realize that we have passed down many of our historical stories. We have our family tree is fully written out from 1864 to today. And
Mm-hmm.
but I also realized from listening to Dr. Humphrey that some of the traumas have been passed down as well.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That those stories, even though it may not have not occurred in my generation, I am still suffering as my mother suffered, as my grandmother suffered, because we have perpetuated the traumas.
Yes.
It's just it's and to know that these things are internal and they're very deep. I realize how many times in my own life that has interfered with my spiritual development and my spiritual growth. However, it was my spiritual growth that helped me overcome and to be healed
Mm-hmm.
from a lot of trauma. I just think that the subject is so fascinating because many of our people are walking right now with layers of trauma, integrated trauma. And I had even come to believe that trauma is actually in our DNA because of
Oh,
the
wow.
because
I
of the
agree.
fact that there are things we don't like, things we resist, and we have no consciousness or awareness of why we dislike certain things. And I know that
I,
from my own personal experience.
I
So
agree
do
with
you
you, Dr.
think,
Butler.
go ahead, Humphrey.
Yes, I agree 100% with Dr. Butler uh, has shared because sitting next to her on the panel that we were on, we shared the same life experience and walked in the same light. And when you have people to give you good advice and the positive, good things in your spirit, you can go a long ways. We come from I don't know, Dr. Butler could be a little more older than me in age, but I'm 64 years old. And when you get that, when you surround yourself around positive people, when you tell a child, you're no good, you'll never be no good, your father wasn't no good, and you instill that in their mind, they can't help but growing up to believe that. But if you teach them, like my mother taught me, don't let nobody tell you what you cannot do, and you give them that confidence. Working in the juvenile justice system and dealing with so many kids that have issues now, I like for, I want to bring this point, I want to make this a special point, and I want you and Dr. Butler to tell me whether you agree with this. We take a child, a juvenile, that come from a broken home through poverty, experiencing layers of trauma, as Dr. Butler shared, deep rooted trauma. It's like a animal trapped in a cage and can't get out, and somebody's throwing in food in the cage where he has to survive. You take a dog. We have a dog. We have our pets, and the dog is programmed at a certain time that you feed that dog. And when that dog don't see you coming out to feed him in a couple of days, it's called the survival mode. That dog is gonna, if he's not chained up, he's gonna get away, and they're gonna begin to roam and look for trash cans to go find food to feed himself so he can survive. So if we take our young children who come in the environment, like I said, urban trauma syndrome, and he sees all of this, because when I was coming up, I was so naive when I watched the Cowboys pictures that when it was a shootout, I thought life was like when the bad guy got shot at the end of the program. At the end of the day, when I saw somebody in the street get shot, I thought they got back up because TV plays a big role in this too, influencing what our children see and what they process in their mind. Okay, so these children are getting in trouble. They already have issues as far as trauma. They have mental issues, psychological issues, however you want to define it. Then they are thrown in the system with
Mm,
hardcore criminals where people
mm,
are in there for murder. Some of them might be in there for killing their parents, killing their brother, raping their sisters, or whatever. And you throw them in that pot where this kid may have just unfortunately got in trouble for hooking school, smoking marijuana, and you put them in the prison in the institution with hardcore criminals. So we got everybody in this melting pot, regardless of what kind of crimes they committed. And then they see this, they live it every day. They have to fear for their life. They have to fight to survive. Some of them don't want to be turned into homosexuals, but they put them in same dormitories in the same cells for rape or whatever. So hurt people, Chief O, hurt other people. I will share this with you even when I was a minister. The gentleman who killed my son, I was seeking revenge. Being a preacher, being who you are in life, doesn't have anything to do with how you feel and the feelings that you can't control and the emotions. But
mm,
the spiritual side, as I said, that balance, I know what God's word said, vengeance is his. So these kids don't know anything like that unless this was instilled in them. Okay. So my
mm-hmm,
point is, these kids going through the system, you can't give something that you haven't been given. If they haven't been shown love and all they know that people have mistreated them, they really haven't built relationships with people that they can trust. So they bond with criminals. I just say the juvenile justice system, if the kids don't get the help that they need to address trauma and get the proper treatment that they need, it just destroys them. So they go through the system as a juvenile, never got the treatment and the help that they needed. I just believe that the word rehabilitation is a scientific word. You can give a person all the programs and everything that you want, unless
mm-hmm,
they have the mindset to want to get help, they're not going to do it. But if they want to get the help, they're going to get the help. You tell kids stop selling drugs, you got to have something to replace in replacement of that, where they can survive and make money. I'm not justifying and say what they're doing is right. So these young kids go through the system. Nobody loving on them. Nobody helping them. They took the shops and trades out of these programs. The question is, what is it left for them to do? Then
mm,
they come, they carjack the
mm,
squeegee boards you go through in the inner city. If they wipe your window and you don't give them anything in return, some of them feel entitled. So what they do, they curse you out. They may spit on you. They may break your window. It's because they haven't been taught. And the
mm,
point that I'm trying to make to the two of you is that some of this is our fault. When I say it's our fault, Dr. Butler being in technology, I can imagine her taking the worstest young lady who dresses like a hoochie mama. Every word come out of her mouth is profanity because the morals and principles that was instilled in her. When we've been blessed, we're supposed to pass it on. Each one teach one. I'm sure Dr. Butler could take this young lady under her wing and say, "This is how a lady acts. This a lady don't do this. A lady don't do that." I always tell people who criticize our young people, our motto with the trauma response team is help, hope, and healing. Don't be part of the problem. Be part of the solution.
mm-hmm,
Invest in the child. And I know this from going to get gang members out of gangs and getting them jobs. Now I'm gonna show you this, Chief. I used to have a roofing company and a home improvement business.
mm-hmm,
I told a drug dealer in one of the worst areas in Baltimore City, Barclay and 24th Street, where they had big gangs down there, the BGF, the Crips, and the Blood, and the Gangster Disciple. And I said, I'm going to put this method to use. I asked the young man, I said, if I could show you how to make $100 a day legally, where you don't have to look over your shoulder, you don't have to be pimped by the drug dealers. He's giving you to sell crack or whatever and giving you $3 off a pill. And you out there day and night, rain, hail, or snow, okay? The condition. So if they can stay out there all night, then they can get a job. But because nobody haven't prepared them, whether it's trade or whatever, to do this,
mm,
they figure this is their only way of life and survival. I asked this young man, I said, if I show you how to make $100 a day legally, would you do it? He said, sure. I said, show up at my place, dressed, ready to work. Don't wear no $200 sneakers, no designer jeans. Just show up with some old work clothes on. I said, it's bull work, but you will be happy. The reward is great. He said, okay. So if you can change a person's attitude, you can change their behavior. We went up
mm,
on the roof to mop the roof. You know how you heat up the tire, your hot tire to put on the roof? That stuff that stinks. Went up on the roof in less than 45, about 45 minutes. I gave him the $100. He sat on my step and counted it for about 15 times. He was so excited. He went and told his friends. The next day, I had about 15 kids standing out there, ready to go
Mm,
to work. You see what I'm saying? So
mm-hmm,
I'm the one that uh, instilled in them these good principles and could pull them off the street because when we do not know their language and we got to
mm-hmm.
root where they are, if we don't do that, we have failed our children.
Those people that,
Yes.
Dr. Humphrey, those people that you have helped, um, what was going through my mind as you was in speaking? Have the black community failed our children, the younger children? How do we structure I want to say soldiers of us, soldiers that can save lives? How do we structure the community to be able to respond to these traumatic events that are happening with your younger generations? What does the black community have to do? And I want people to understand that I'm strictly for the black community. I know that there's other community. You can come in, listen, call me, text me, whatever you want to say, but I am focused on what happens to us. How does the black community structure an organization movement to help help these younger people that are caught up in a system that is so destructive? How do we do that?
Well, first of all, Chico, we're doing it right now. God don't need a whole lot of people to do His will. He just needs the right people who can follow instructions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a trauma summit this Saturday from 9 to 1 at my church, and
Mm.
Dr. Butler will be one of my special guests, and she will be on the second part of the panel. First of all, our folk have identity crisis. We're the only race of people who have been stigmatized to say that we can't work together, but I beg to differ because you take someone with Dr. Butler's background in technology and your expertise. I heard so many great things about what you do, Chico. What happened? We have to take our rightful place. Every other nationality, race, creed of people look out for each other. Well, in the older days, black people did the same thing. We were so happy with the less things that we had. So what happened is that because some of us were blessed enough to get the education, move out of the hood, and like the Jefferson, we done moved on up. We have to go back.
Mm-hmm.
We got to go back, and we got to go back and reach these folk that are lost. And
So
once
let me,
we do that,
let me Dr. Butler, you're going to be on that summit at Dr. Humphrey's church. Uh,
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. There will be several of us from some of the community groups within the city, but we're coming to support his efforts because there's something about this whole topic of trauma where I see it permeates through every status in our city, our communities, our children, our education, even our politicians. We need people that really understand the impact of this brain science. Trauma has actually become our habit and our habitual way of thinking and moving. I think this is not just critical, it's life critical right now. We cannot help anyone. I mean, people have even lost their hope right now. And that's what makes this so deeply concerning to me. It has gotten critical for our people. There's nothing we can do unless we help people heal through trauma.
Give us some more detail on this trauma summit that you're having in the church. Doc, Dr. Humphrey, where's the church located? Because, we need to advertise this so people will know that this is going on.
Sure,
Because people, like
sure,
you said, that are sitting on layers of trauma, as my good friend Dr. Butler have said, layers of trauma. Now they can get some help, they can
sure,
understanding, get some
sure,
clarification on what to do at the summit, documents, help. So
sure.
give
Mhm.
advertise it, in other words.
The trauma summit will be held Saturday, July the 24th. The time will be from 9 to 1 because we have extra other special guests. It's probably run a little longer, and the address will be the name of the church is the New Christian Baptist Fellowship Church, which is located at 3702 West Rogers Avenue, Baltimore, Maryland 21215. New Christian Baptist Fellowship Church, 3702 West Rogers Avenue. The time will be from 9 to 1. And Chief O, here's what's going on. So many town hall meetings is going on, and they're talking about the problems, the crimes. You turn on the media, and the Fox 45 keeps saying, "Who's going to save our city?" Okay, Baltimore. I can't speak on no other cities and states. I'm only can speak on I can only speak on Baltimore. Baltimore has always pulled themselves up by the bootstring straps and was known. The history was known because we were in the middle of the Mason-Dixon line, Maryland, of being that southern state. Was known to look out and help one another. We figured out things. So I don't want anyone to come talking about I'm not being negative or arrogant. We don't need a platform for people to come to. If they want to vent, that's another section. They can always call me and we can do something different. But we talk about so much what the problem is. What the problems are. We know what the problems are. God has placed me in the midst of people like Sister Bazemore, uh, Dr. Butler. We met a young lady. I think she's from Germany. Dr. Butler. What's her name? Johanna. Is that her name?
She's coming. She told me
Oh,
she had something else to do and she thought she would arrive about noon. I told her, no, that means you missed it. You got to get there. She said she'll be there early.
praise God. So we have,
She's coming.
and let me tell you, let me share what some of the topics will be, Chico. Some of the topics will be education because we know that our school system are failing our children, right? And if you allow me, I'll touch on back in the day why Johnny had to read, and opposed to the 21st century, why Johnny can't read. So we having people like Dr. Butler, who not only can expound on technology, education, life skills, de-escalation, social skill, all of above. But we're going to talk about. A lady shared this with me who had extensive background in dealing in mental health. She told me the ages that a pedophile prey on children, what to look for in a pedophile. Are you aware, Chiefo, that a pedophile preys on children 1 years
Yes.
old? Yeah, because they can't talk. I didn't know
Mhm.
that. And to recognize signs of a pedophile, we're going to talk about how important it is health wise what young people put in their bodies, not just young people, people in general, because so many of our kids are obese and have diabetes and they don't even know it. We're going to talk about uh, uh, African Americans can become entrepreneurs and business people. We have Sister Bazemore, who's is I call her a walking scientist. This lady is brilliant. We're gonna have people on the panel to talk about substance abuse, life abuse, peer pressure, people that takes care of the elderly abuse. So we're gonna have so many topics, but we have to narrow it down that each expert in their field will have the floor, because when you open these questions up, so many people want these questions and they want answers that I have to facilitate it in the way that people get this information. We have Dr. Hale from John Hopkins. He's going to come. He's one of my colleagues to talk about depression. When I first took the job at John Hopkins, being associate director of the East Baltimore Trauma Response Team, I don't know if you know Michael Bloomberg. He's a philanthropist. His name is the building name, the Bloomberg School of Public Health at John Hopkins, is named after him because he made so many contributions. What happens, the students at John Hopkins were coming here all across the world, and they made a statement say that they uh, said that they were uh, living in fear and they didn't feel safe coming here to go to school.
mm,
So what happened, they created a East Baltimore trauma response team that only respond to the things that happen around John Hopkins Hospital, and even working for Hopkins and being a consultant. If you know, Hopkins was known for the experimental hospital. So I was asked to deal with the trauma piece with our people. And I told him that I can't allow you to keep me because you oppress my people. So you can learn off them and get billions and billions of dollars. Had a social worker that told me she want to come out in the field with me to deal with African American people, and she want to fake it till she make it, so she can go to the next level. So if we have people on this panel, of some of the people that I named, and explain to people, even though you think it's no hope, and you think that the light doesn't get bright at the end of the tunnel, we're going to teach them ways how. It's just like if a doctor gives you medication, and some people over medicate themselves. When doctor gives you medication and on that bottle it said take all of it at a certain time, right? And if you don't do that, just like a person taking an antibiotic, if they say take it for 7 days and you only take it for 3 days, it's not going to do your body any good. So we're going to show them the mindset that just because you think you're in bondage, there is hope and there's a way out. And not only that, I
Yes.
take it to different churches. I take it to churches. There are people in the church who won't even come to their pastor because they don't feel comfortable talking to their pastor about their trauma. So I train police officers. I train.
mm,
I just train whoever wants the information. And Dr. Butler, she doesn't know it yet, but she's going to be. What I'm going to. I already spoken into existence. The Lord says, "Speak these things into existence." I'm already naming and claiming that we're going to sit down and come up together and put a comprehensive package together that we're going to teach our people to get them the help that they need. In the Kennedy Cricket, John Hopkins, when the kid was at Hickey School and he was at the Kennedy Cricket, and they said, going through the books of the theory that if he talked back to his mother, if he was violent, they say put him on Prozac. If he wasn't active enough, no, I'm saying the back was on Ritalin, and if he wasn't uh, being normal and just acting out, they say put him on Prozac. So Prozac
mm,
and Ritalin was the drug.
mm,
They misdiagnosed our kids where grandmama would give us the remedy, and I'm sure both of y'all can agree with this. The down home remedy that grandma gave us when we couldn't go to the doctor. What was it, Doctor Butler? The Vicks, the 4-4, the 4-6. You know what I'm talking about? The cough syrup. What was that? The 6-6 cough
I'm
syrup,
sorry.
666. You can't hear me? Hello?
Dr. Butler, you're muted out, but
Okay,
can you
thank
hear
you.
me? Okay, okay. Okay, go
I can
ahead.
hear.
Okay.
Dr. Butler, I was saying back in the day when you got a cold, your parents couldn't afford to take us to the doctors, and what they got, the Father John or the 666, the cough syrup. Can you hear me?
My mic is a little off today. I just couldn't hear the details of what you said. I heard you say six something.
No, I was saying back. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Dr. Humphrey. Speak on.
Oh, I was saying
Or
when
maybe,
we caught
maybe,
cold.
Dr. Humphrey, maybe because we have about 7 minutes left for this show, these information that you have will come out at the summit, at the Trauma Summit, this coming Saturday, July 24, from 9 to 1 p.m. So, folks, if you're out there and you're hearing us, if you're listening, and even if you're going to be going to YouTube to and locking into, let's talk about it, because that's what the show is called. Let's talk about it. The New
Yes.
Christ Baptist Fellowship Church, 3702 West
New
Roger.
Christian, new,
Say that again.
it's the
That
New
address.
Christian Baptist Fellowship,
Ah,
3702
New
Rogers Avenue.
Christian, New
Yes,
Christian Baptist
Baptist
Fellowship.
Church.
So, folks, if
Yes.
you're really listening out there, please plan to go to this summit, especially. I don't know if there's any black family or black person in the African American community that does not have some kind of trauma. And there's going to be experts at this summit that will give you some uh, answers and perhaps even solutions. But you've got to get
Yes.
out there and talk about it. You've got to go to this summit. So if you have a chance, please, this coming Saturday, July 24, 9 to 1 p.m. at the New Christian Baptist Fellowship Church with Dr. Humphrey and my dear sister Bazemore. Oh my goodness! And of course, this very lovely lady, very sharp. I'm telling you, if you don't have the right mindset, Dr. Gwen will do you in. So she has a ton. I mean, huge experience, hidden gems of intelligence and information for you who need the help, for all of us who need the help. So if you can, please go to this event on Saturday, July 24th. It's very critical for this community, for all you, for your family, for all of us. Um, Dr. Humphrey, I am so appreciative of you and what you're doing for the community, and we need more. We need more. It's just we
Thank
said
you
we
for
can just
having.
we,
Thank you for having me.
I wish that we can just have we can just mold you into about 20 of you. So and then we'll really have some. And like Dr. Butler, if we can have about 20 Dr. Butlers, we will be in. We'll have a lot of solutions for a lot of problems, but I don't think that's possible. So people should go to this a summit. It's a summit. It's not just anything. It's a whole summit with experts who are going to be there to answer your questions and to help you out. Dr. Butler, as usual, you're the most fantastic human being I know. Well, second to
Well, it takes one to know one, Chief.
none.
It was a
I'm so
joy being with you two today. I
oh,
feel as though I'm sitting between two kings. And it's,
no,
I'm very proud of my brothers when they are doing what you're doing. You guys are top guns all the way. And I thank you for having me today.
and you're the queen. You're the queen. You're right there, right? Commanding and making sure that things are going the right direction. And this community needs it. Just for
Yes.
your own information, This is out of the line of what we're talking about. But keep an eye on Dr. Butler. She may just surprise everybody and make a move that will shock all of you. But it's certainly needed in the state of Maryland. It's certainly needed. We need her. We welcome her back home. And I'm telling you, she's stepping into everything and making things working for all of us. So watch out for Dr. Butler. Keep your ears tuned to her. Keep your eyes open. Stay aware. We got a gem in the family, and it's gonna shine for all of us. Dr. Humphrey, I'd like to have you back on the show because there's so much to this problem. Trauma is an existing issue. It's a continuously existing issue, and we need to do more talking about it. The effects of trauma, exhaustion, confusion, sadness, anxiety, agitation, all these we need to expand on it more. We need to talk more about it. Would you, after the 24th, would you be able to come back to the show and give the community a report, for the lack of better word, and tell the community how it worked?
I would be honored to do that, Chief Joe. But I do want to let you know that when I speak with Dr. Butler, we want to take this. This is not just an event, but this is a spiritual movement that we
Exactly.
want to take.
Yes,
Want to
yes.
take it wherever we can take it, whoever will accept us, and we want to educate our people. If it had not,
Exactly.
if it had not been for me standing on the shoulders of others, I wouldn't be where I'm at today by the grace of God.
We're grateful
Amen.
that you're here. We're grateful that you're able to help this community. Thank God for your presence. Thank God for your efforts. Thank God for you. I'm just so, as a broadcaster, I'm just so thrilled to be able to use the means and this medium that we have to expand it, to let it grow,
Yes.
let it go where it may.
Thank you, thank you, Chief Yo. Uh,
God bless you, Dr. Humphrey. God bless you,
Dr.
Dr.
Butler,
Butler. I am so happy
mhm,
we're going to be leaving the air. Now, don't forget about it, anybody. YouTube, let's talk about it. And we continue talking about issues because if we talk about it, we will come up with a solution. Thank you for the guests that I have. God bless you and good night.
good night. Talk to you later, Dr. Butler.